Would like to public. And we're looking for any apologies. I've got one here from Mark, and one from Francois. Any other apology? And we're going to move into a second for the apologies received. Thanks, Peter. Jackie, thank you. Any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest? Late items? No late items, and we'll now move on to confirmation of last PMC meeting minutes on the 3rd of February. And we'll move in a second. Thanks, Andy. Moving in a second that all those in favour of those records, those minutes being a correct record. Thank you. Actions first. Look at the actions at the back of the report. First action is to determine the timelines for the review. It's ongoing. It's leave that at that. Next one is action provided by providing Councillor Birchfield with a number of gold mining consents from Group Manager, and that was completed. The next one is to provide Councillor Ewan with details on gravel extraction. That was completed. And another final action report to provide councillors with more information on the exposed dump site at Ross. And that's completed too. Another move. All those in favour of those action lists? Sorry,
just one point on number 4. Yeah, Ross. There seems to be a degree of confidence here from staff that there's no risk of further waste being exposed. Well, isn't that, there must be just a pocket, an isolated dump, is it? Because if there's an extension to the dump and it hasn't been exposed, how can you say that the sea could expose it for you? I just want to get clarity on the nature of the dump.
Okay, yeah, that is correct. It was just a pocket that was exposed to the coast, and so the material being removed. Yes.
So there's no fear.
No risk of it ending up, and there's no concerns that it's going to expose to weeds.
Thank you.
So can we have all those in favour of those action lists that have all been completed and complied with?
Yep.
Against? Okay. Oh, can we have a movement or a second on that those action lists? Sorry.
I'll move.
Thanks, Alan. And second, Colin. Thank you. And all those in favour of those actions have been complied with? All right. Thank you. Chair's report. Let's read the report here. A couple of items of particular interest and importance to me have been risen since the last Environmental Management Committee meeting. One was the construction has commenced on the rock protection placement along the Waterbury Bank adjacent the O'Connor Home facility. Stockpiling of the rock undertaken earlier last year is now being utilised with the convenience of on-site stockpiles. Another item for me was the total mobility discussion document, which is a project of significant importance. It provides a streamlined system to many impaired or disabled individuals and uses a credit card-based system method that has been embraced by our communities. And given the West Coast's lack of bus service, taxis are the primary providers. It is concerning that the Ministry of Transport is attempting to cap and reduce the fares from $30 down to $27 and claiming a modest reduction of $10%. In reality, the user's share of $7.50 would increase up to $10.50 they would have to pick up the $3. And that really is an increase to the user of 40%. Ebenezer Scrooge would have been impressed by the penny pinching technique to reduce subsidies from 75% to 65%. Other proposed administrative changes would unnecessarily complicate an efficient and cost-effective system. The end result is a situation where government departments spend $10 to save $3. I'm really proud of the associated and to be associated with the West Coast Regional Council submission, which provided a detailed explanation of the West Coast unique circumstances and objection to the MOT's proposed changes. Here's the report. Moving and seconded the report be received. Well, Colin. In favour? Aye. You? Now we're moving on to various reports. The Regional Best Management Plan Review and Early Engagement Discussion Document with Fanti. And she's made some recommendations here. It is recommended that the committee resolve to receive the report. Note that the West Coast Regional Council is required under the Biosecurity Act to maintain and periodically review the Regional Pest Management Plan. And note that a structured shareholder engagement plan has been developed to support the RPMP review. She also recommends we approve the release of the Regional Pest Management Plan Review Early Management Discussion Document and to seek feedback from the stakeholders and wider community. Moving in a second to get that to actually expand it. All in favour? Right. So for discussion.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm happy just to ask questions on this. We've spent an hour working on that one.
Mr. Chairman, against my vote against, please.
Yeah. Questions?
Through the process, we were given the chance to speak to the feedback.
Yes, so we've contacted various, we've got about 20 different groups and contacted them asked if they would like face-to-face workshops. And so a presentation that I gave to you this morning, I'll give a similar one, but slightly more tailored to them and how it might impact them. So we're meeting with all 3 district councils in person, Dot Conservation Board, the National Ungulate Program Directors, and the National Directors of Predator Control Program, and then sort of your deer stalkers and yeah, rural support people, yeah. And then in terms of general engagement, we're just looking at giving out the surveys and things. We didn't have that great engagement with our State of the Environment report, so sort of tried to change the approach and do more targeted to groups as opposed to just community presentations. It's really open to that if you think it would be useful. We're thinking maybe in France, Joseph, would be a good turnout for the yesterday, and Hokitika was like it as well. Potentially those communities.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I think that's certainly the opportunity to engage through that early engagement phase, but Shanti, that as the process advances through its more formal stages, and then there's submissions that people can actually be heard formally in front of this council. Is that what you're meaning, Councillor?
Correct, yes, yeah. So that will only happen through the formal consultation.
The document obviously it's got a lot of changes to be made between here and there. I just note there wasn't a box, there was a box to tick to be confidential, keep their submission confidential.
Yes.
Not to be heard. So just check on that.
Yeah. I have added that to be on the website, but it's not on the written document. So yeah, I'll just have to manage that one, but thanks for that.
And Shanti, as indicated in the workshop, that there is an intention to put out hard copy forms in different outlets as well, just for those who are not so inclined to visit websites.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's a good idea until they have to pay. We probably need to do a bit of cost
structure to it.
I tried to make that as obvious as possible in the document by every question saying at a cost to ratepayers if that option had a cost associated with it, so that they weren't, they were considering that. But at this stage, we haven't done the cost benefit analysis, so we costed it the exact. Yeah, you're right.
And it's hard to.
Yeah. So that's why we go through a secondary consultation, which will have the exact costs, and then people can have their feedback heard and speak to their feedback at that, which will be more impactful because there'll be more data associated with it.
Through the chair, Shanti, Councillor Campbell's raised on a lot of occasions the WARO sort of way of dealing with things. Is there a way we can capture or ask the question and take the engagement from the community around ideas? See, the existing model of how it's being done doesn't seem to be delivering outcomes everyone wants. Is there a way of, I guess, either asking a question or that question to look for the alternatives from those who have experience in the game locally?
You're talking about wild animal recovery?
Or alternative methods for dealing with the current problem, because other than throwing money that no one has added to fix the problem, we're not going to.
Yeah, so there are a couple of
currently do it.
Open-ended questions, which will hopefully do something. So what do you think is the best way of managing ungulates? There's another option, and there's lines there that they can just put anything there. So they might say, yeah, that wild animal recovery or on sale, we get a lot of that, and we can delve in what it might look like and how the regional council can support that. It just has to align with our regulatory functions. And if that's not a function of the regional council, then it becomes a little bit more difficult to do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, given this has come up, many times, particularly from Councillor Campbell, I wonder in our, meetings and that we're setting up and having with all the different groups, well aware that there's at least one operator on the West Coast that's actually doing wild animal recovery, let alone networks, here and that sort of thing. Would it be worth setting up one of those sort of meetings with some of the councillors to actually engage and hear what they're doing and what their constraints are and opportunities, etc.? I think that would be useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's even like the like math, what the rules are.
Yeah.
That sort of hinder it a bit.
And
Okay.
can I just say, I know that might not be completely under the auspice of the regional pest management plan, but I think given how often this issue's come up, let's just tack it on, even if it's not going to be, a matter for the plan, just to actually explore and hear what those constraints and opportunities are. Thank you.
And just two things. I'd certainly support what our CEO is saying, that we need to understand what are the constraints, what are the barriers for the commercialization of animal ungulate control. But the other thing, Shanti, if you can keep all of us informed as councillors of the meetings, because it's probably quite important that councillors in the different regions are at those meetings to provide support.
Yeah, so at the moment, most of our meetings are with like district councils or
Right.
groups at an operational level. So I've just kept those internal.
Right.
I don't have that many public meetings, but I can. That will obviously be one specifically. I do have. I am a little bit unsure of whether we'll get engagement on that piece of work, but we can try.
So in terms of engagement with the likes of the Deerstalkers Association,
Yeah.
Federated Farmers, etc., probably quite good if you've got councillors or councillor.
Yes, yeah. So we've got Federated Farmers tomorrow, which you've all been invited to.
Yeah.
Deerstalkers, I've had to go back to them about 3 times to get sort of engagement. They have come back to me now and said, yeah, we are interested, but it is a lot of concerted effort to kind of really get these people involved. So if you've got any ideas.
Yeah, it's the wrong time of year. It's a rule.
Yeah, right.
There you go. Yeah. Good to know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shanti. No further discussion. We'll move on to item 8.2. It's the second quarter biosecurity report from Shanti. The recommendation is that the committee resolve to receive the report Note progress on the annual bicycle update. And then we'll leave in a second to those questions. Colin? You? Chris, thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Open for discussion.
Oh, yeah, so for some of you, this might be the first time you've seen a biosecurity annual quarterly report. This is our legislative requirement to update you on how we are achieving the goals within our current RPMP. So we set out an annual work program, set objectives, and then give ourselves KPIs. I believe we've got about 64 on this one. The objectives link directly back to that plan. There's some good highlights there, including the lake surveillance that we do, and we had our divers go out and do that work. Reports will come in the next quarterly report. We also did quite a lot of advocacy work through Clean Check Dry. There's some photos there. And Emily and her team released some biocontrol the Old Man's Beard. There's a photo of Em out there with the sawfly release. So that's another one of those kind of low-cost options to manage more widespread pests. Happy to take any questions on anything that we're doing in this space.
Well, so is environmental control showing good efficacy, is it?
Yeah, it's pretty good. So there is a national collective. All the regional councils sign up, and we collectively fund research into different organisms. Landcare Research, not called Landcare Research anymore, but they do the sort of investigations, and then we can tap into that source. We've only recently joined that collective. We were sort of the last regional council to do that, but we're already seeing the benefits of being able to bring these biocontrol into our region and see them working. So, yeah.
Doc still controlling the papers?
Emily?
Yes, they're spending quite a bit of money controlling and fly helicopter in his house.
So maybe we shouldn't give up.
Yep.
Like if someone
Definitely
tried land, like we got a bit like, oh, well, no, I thought, oh, we'll stuff it out of control and I was gonna leave it. They're still trying to control it, then the landowners will probably make an attempt.
Minimise the impacts and the
yeah.
spread. Yep. What's on that?
No, I do agree. Coordinated action across land tenure. We are doing our current plan still stays that we are trying to progressively contain. So we are doing inspection visits in those areas where dog are controlling.
Yeah, it's probably not too late if they're still doing work on it.
We've got some purpose though, isn't it?
Correct, yeah.
Almost out of control.
Yeah, and that's the one that Andy's talking about, the purple pampas
Okay.
down in South Westland. White pampas, we think we're getting on top of. And so that's the one that we're going to move more towards eradication, because we think we can get rid of that. And they do are slightly different niches or habitats. So there is benefit on getting rid of white without getting rid of purple.
And wind distributed, are they?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the native toy, it's not quite as big a leaf, is it?
Yeah, so the native dewey grows quite a bit smaller, flowers at a different time of year, and again, because it's native, has native things keeping it at bay, preventing it from becoming
Droopier
widespread.
flower heads as well is kind of a telltale, slightly thinner. But
Yeah, the leaves
Yeah, so-
are quite a lot harder and don't break easily as well.
It gets back to my earlier comment in the workshop, how much of this should the ratepayer be funding? Because it looks like a lot of this work is on lakes and non-rated areas.
so we get funding from DOC to do that lake work, and MPI as well for the Clean Check Dry. So we deliver the work, but we don't necessarily ratepayer fund it.
Thank you.
And that's not where we should really get rid of that.
Knotweed, yeah. So that there is a little bit of a report on where we're at with the knotweed, progressively contained. So at the moment, our KPI is percentage of known sites on private land are controlled outside of containment areas. We've only got 2 containment areas, and they've achieved 83% of known sites, but they've identified 13 new sites, and 6 just this spring. So they've contracted the weed buster. So we've got someone going out to private land and checking things. It's so important for us in this space to know where things are. Otherwise, we could be off here controlling a weed and it's somewhere else doing its
Yeah,
thing.
it's not weed or soft weed. What do you?
Not weed.
Not weed.
Not weed. I think a diddy mo maybe. That
Yeah.
rock's not. Yeah.
Shanti, 63 or 64 is on track. Very good. Remiss of us not to ask, I guess, around that challenge with Kiwi Rail for the one that's potentially at risk of slipping. Is that going to be an ongoing risk or issue, or is there something we need to do in that space to manage that?
So it's at risk at the moment. There's been a change in the track inspector staff. So at Kiwi Rail, our context has just changed, so it's been a bit of a delay. We expect we'll just get one railway surveillance done this year, but next year, all going well, we expect it won't be an ongoing issue.
It's actually a really good partnership, that one. Other regional councils are sort of starting to model what we're doing in their regions as well, because it's a huge, spreader of pests, and they haven't been able to have a good partnership, whereas ours is very low cost and has been very easy. So I guess it's just those local relationships which are quite important.
Awesome.
Just another question, Shanti. Our environmental monitoring and this weed control, if we put it into a separate unit, could we make that a standalone organisation funding itself?
I mean, like vector services type of thing, is that?
Yes, yes.
Vector Control Services actually does deliver some of this work already for us. So we try and get as much of the work delivered by our business unit as opposed to external contractors to reduce costs for the ratepayer. I mean, this is government legislative required things to do. So, and part of that legislation is that we have to rate for it under the Local Government Act. So I don't think you would be able to cover it all. The legislation, the government legislation would have to change.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'd be suggesting in our long-term plan, is to create separate entities within the council and make them self-fund, like engineering.
So like a user pays basis.
Yeah.
You could do that for biosecurity, which would be very compliance driven. But I sort of highlighted in the workshop that doesn't always work when you're relying on landowners to do work that they're not necessarily trained or resourced to do. And it has a regional benefit of us coming in and doing that work. It has been how this council has operated in the past, very compliance focused.
Thank you.
Why can't we go to your documentation? We'll get the VC control and this guy. The drone can wear very big.
Yeah, we do offer our services. Most of that work, as Emily highlighted, is done by helicopter spraying. We don't provide those services, so we can't help with that.
But the trouble is, the helicopter's probably costing one day what the drone would cost for a month.
Yeah, so we are in VCS trying to progress our 102 certification, which would enable us to do ag spraying. At the moment, we don't have that certification.
Because I think that they spent a whole day on the Wanganui. I think it must be spraying pampers and they haven't come under the bridge hardly. Whereas the money that helicopter costs would have controlled the whole river.
Yeah, I'll suggest it to Matt and we can look into it to provide options to DOC on make the control more effective. We meet with DOC quarterly on an operational basis to make sure our operations and weed management are aligned and that we share kind of times that we're doing the work and best practice as well. So you can put that on the list and we can share that.
There's a Colin, remember we had a Okahuru rating district. We used drones in the Okahuru
Correct.
drones.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Mixed results on that one.
Yeah.
Very the parrot's feather work and it being an aquatic species, there's a lot of other things in the EPA that we have to consider with herbicides that we can use.
Yeah, that's right. We couldn't use the couldn't use the really effective spray because of aquatic issues. Yeah.
And the regional sector is working with the EPA to try and allow us to do some more of that type of work to make sure that we can achieve the goals of the RPMP.
Any more questions?
Like spot spray on a helicopter is pretty expensive. If you're doing a big blanket job, that helicopter's coming to where you go.
Becky?
Shanti, I was wondering whether we were doing any types of manual extraction, or is that just not happening?
No, we do that. All sorts of control is considered. It really depends. We work with the landowners.
For aquatic specifically?
Emily has tried quite a lot of manual removal of parrot's feather, the Hokitika site. That's results.
Yeah, it's sort of parrot's feathers are being hard ones. We're trying lots of different methods to keep on top of it. Manual has been, it's got a longer term sort of control, but it does still pop back, and we haven't succeeded at plant-based.
For longer term control?
Yeah.
That's promising. Thank you.
The jobs for nature had a weed busting crew, didn't they?
Yes, yeah. So we've tried to maintain the gains achieved through that work. Obviously, we weren't able to do what they were doing because it was significant investment into the region, but we're just trying to work out where we can do work to maintain what they've achieved.
So all that funding brought up.
Correct. Yeah, that was a few million, wasn't it? A few million over 3 years, and they achieved some really great things. Really increased our knowledge of what was across the region, which is obviously very beneficial for us. And we've picked up programs where we can do work.
Yeah, move on to item 9.3, which is the catchment coordination report. Shanti again. It's recommended that the committee resolve to receive the report, note progress in regional impact at the catchment coordination program and number 3, note the team is set to discontinue at the end of June due to the expiration of external funding. Another section that you call. Discussion. All in favour? Aye. The discussion.
Yes, I can just give a brief overview. This is a really high engagement project that was funded through the Ministry for the Environment. We were able to hire 5 staff, and we've seen some really successful outcomes of that. Unfortunately, we haven't added this into next year's annual plan, so we are not keeping any of those 5 staff under the current proposal that you have for annual plan next year. And that was to do with, to the rates increase associated with this work, which was all externally funded. Some really great things that they've done: workshops, man-made wetlands, so supporting farmers to understand how we can use wetlands to reduce flooding, but also improve water quality. Whitebait was really successful as well. We've seen a lot of interest in that. And that can be a sort of a co-benefit thing as well. If farmers are really interested in creating whitebait habitat, then it can also support better water quality. Trapping, we've got a lot of biosecurity interest from this team. So quite often we go out there with the intention of working with farmers to improve water quality, but they want to talk about ungulates and pest management. And that's really what catchment work is. It's about going out to those communities and understanding what they value and supporting them to achieve outcomes for their own goals, really. Sawyers Creek, some really good community meetings there, and Kawatieri community as well. Lots of community interest, and giving some great support to those 2 projects. We've recently also just had one up in Grey as well. So there's still more groups coming, and this is we're in the infancy of catchment groups here. And as
he was really keen and full of go. Team leader was.
Sam, yes. Yeah.
It's hard to say. I reckon another 6 months or 12 months, we might have been able to establish those networks that would have, led to it being
sustainable.
Yeah. So Sam's actually gone back to Gisborne. He's now a councillor for Gisborne District Council. And Emily has been managing this team alongside biosecurity for the last, must be about 4 months now, and doing a great job at it as well. You'll see several projects, and all of these are generated from community interest. So where most of our programs are led by legislation, this is what we have to do bare minimum. This is really what does our community want to do, and how do we make that work to support our legislative requirements. We're the only regional council in the country that doesn't have a catchment coordination program like this. There's an interesting report that's just being developed at the moment to show other councils' investment, and it's anywhere between 10 million to 500,000. The lowest investment by a regional council is around the 500,000 mark. So just showing, we are a bare minimum council. We really aren't doing anything extra. And this work is awesome and our community loves it, but we are making hard decisions to make sure we are in that back to basics model. Cost and benefit and risks and implications here as well. Happy to take any questions on the report.
I'd just like to say, I went to one of the community meetings, the Sawyers Creek community meeting, the first meeting, and and just listened to our team, delivering to the community. And these are incredibly worthwhile activities, and they're great leverage, like for the input that our council puts into these. We get significant leverage through the community because the community then goes out and does its work. But it's also really good from a council PR perspective too, because this is us in the community, us engaging with the community, involved with the community. So great projects, and I'd actually like to see, as a councillor, would like to see more resource go into this area, even in this constrained environment, because we get a multiplier effect out of it.
Yes. Yeah, this highlights the issue that I talked about previously. You get the likes of government or MFE, give them the funding, the initial grant to seed it off, get it underway. And when that's withdrawn, the best intentions, it falls over, because then it falls on the ratepayer to carry it on. And it's the old camel effect. One more straw on the camel, and it just doesn't work because of our small rating back. And when I hear that, we're one of the few or the only council in the country that doesn't do this because we're small rating base, that's because we're the only council in the coast, in the whole of New Zealand's got 80% government. Go figure.
I think we should look outside the square of it, because costs a lot to plant a riparian or the shrub or the trees, doesn't it? But it's that easy to pick flaxseed off the flaxes at the moment. Like you grab one of them flax heads and there's 1,000 flax seeds in them. So we need to educate people on flicking that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's my point about, we just needed another 6-12 months more of the team being in place to get these networks up and educate the community. This is what we can do. We really almost didn't have one complete season, did we, really, where that sort of capability became obvious.
Yeah, I'll just highlight as well, it's not all lost either. I've really emphasised, and Emily's done some great work in making sure that we make sure that the value is like sort of long lasting, so no regrets work. How do we make sure that we set communities up so they don't fall over? And there is talk of a catchment collective. So there is government funding coming in, but it looks different. So instead of them giving funding to regional councils, they're only funding catchment collectives at a regional scale. So we're working with those groups to look at what a regional catchment collective would look like so that they can receive funding. So we will provide some support, but we will be pretty constrained at doing that, because we've only got the biosecurity team and myself in terms of the resource to try and make that happen. But we're still having meetings, and South Westland Pastoral Group is still going pretty strong, and they're getting funding from the government as well. So we still will support these community groups. We'll just be achieving a lot less through us, and hopefully getting them to do what they do as much as possible.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Can I just say, councillors, it's great disappointment to see the demise of this team and the great work that they're doing. And if you go back in the reports of this team, they would have engaged with hundreds and hundreds of West Coasters on the issues that they took out to the communities. But look, there's a fiscal reality here. We always knew this had a shelf life because of the external funding, which is now in parts. I would also comment that the fiscal challenges, even in a bigger population regional council area, was always forecast back in 1989 when the regional councils got set up. And that's why just about every other regional council except the West Coast had external revenue streams such as ports and airports and endowment lands as external revenue to fund this sort of work, which relieved the pressure on the general rate. That was the absolute intention in 1989, but unfortunately the West Coast did not have those sorts of assets like the Port Otago, Centre Port of Wellington, Port of Tauranga, where to the point where, for instance, Bay of Plenty Regional Council only derives for its expenditure 25% of its income from rates, and all the rest is externally funded from those dividends. Right, that's the extent of it in Bay of Plenty. Right, we don't have that, and then there's fiscal realities here. However, I want to leave you with this. We will bring back something as part of long-term plan because there's other avenues that we're exploring with communities, with other funders and other opportunities, which the conversations are starting. And I don't want to just walk away from this. I want to explore what are our other opportunities, because I think this is the right work we should do into the future. And we'll bring that back as part of the long-term plan. Thanks.
Neil taking as an example, that fell back on the right path. So Peter said, once these things start, he ends up coming back on the right path.
Littleton's benefited from our resources. Should give us some money back.
Thanks, everybody. We'll now move on to the planning report from Matt. And it's on the total mobility discussion document and the submission that we put in, and it's recommended that the committee resolve to receive the report. And we'll move on for second and third committee. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So this report was a bit of an update on the upcoming RMA reforms and some transport matters. Most of the RMA, the planning and natural environment bills, are expected to be enacted later this year. Key feature of the new system is a requirement for a regional spatial plan, and that's for each region. So these plans will set the long-term, which is 30 plus years in this case, for land use infrastructure and development, and will be delivered through the spatial plan committee made up of the local authorities in the region, with some potential involvement from the ministries. Local authorities of each region must work together to establish a spatial plan committee. Committee may either be appointed under the Local Government Act or be an existing committee established under other legislation. So in this case, TTP is a good option to be considered. There's no direction given on funding of the committee and or development of the plan. So that's something we'll have to turn our minds to. There are some significant uncertainties, in particular the statutory timeframes for preparing the plans are very tight, and there's sector-wide concern that they may not be achievable. There's also a lot of uncertainty around national direction, which will be quite key to the detail and what's involved in the planning process there. Funding and implementation details are very sketchy, and a lot of this may depend on the outcome of the election. In response, we've planning staff have begun early prep work and are reviewing current planning documents to ensure they're fit for purpose. And so that we're in a good position to transition to the new planning frameworks. Outside of the RMA, work is progressing on the regional pest management plan, which you're aware of, with consultation underway, and on transport matters. Proposed changes to the total mobility scheme will reduce subsidies and fare caps from July 2026, which may impact users, particularly in rural areas. Other updates include the ongoing development of the regional land transport plan, infrastructure improvements such as Coal Creek Bridge upgrade, and the loss of the Westport Wellington Air Service. So Max is here. Is there any questions around the discussion document and the submission?
The total mobility cap, is that unindustrial virtually, is it, or is it?
So it's going to pass to final approval, but it's the communication we've had from NCPA is basically if we don't do the 10% fare cap reduction, we don't have the redeployment of the SERF funding of our budgets. So it's not been signed off yet, but it's highly likely.
Yeah, Hobson's choice, I think, so we have to accept it or we don't. And it's just a general theme of this government that rural New Zealand again gets hit because we have no public transport. Cost is going to fall on those who use it. And I think there must be a misprint on page 64 of the entry page. This is not government policy. I think we should cross out the not. It is government policy. We'll find out Monday. We're in Christchurch. It will be policy.
Ashley?
Through Chair, Max, is there any update on, dare I say, a third or fourth player in the market with the pulling out of Origin Air out of Pola at Westport? Any New Zealand doing, sound they're doing now. I don't do it.
I haven't heard anything, but my ear isn't particularly close to the ground in that area, but I'm happy to ask some questions to people.
I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I wonder if I could comment that. As councillors know, weekend before last, we had New Zealand First Caucus and their leader here on the West Coast. There was a direct engagement on this matter with New Zealand First, with the Mayor of Bulla District Council, but also our staff member Ashley Stewart, and those discussions with New Zealand First around the consideration of the airline service are ongoing at the moment. And if there's any further update, I'll make sure that we push something out to you. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I wonder if, while I'm still I wonder if I could just make a comment on the Resource Management Act replacement acts. So at the moment, that's in select committee in Wellington. I'm going through select committee. If it comes out of select committee, we'll go to second and then third reading and then be enacted. The government's still saying that they would like to finish that whole process before election, although there is some speculation whether that's even going to be possible. So we haven't put in our annual plan, you would have heard from earlier today in the workshop, any cost implications of any of that, including spatial plan, RMA replacement in our annual plan for next year yet, because there's just not enough confidence at the moment that some of those things are going to roll through and get through select committee. I know, councillors, that many of you were welcoming our call of the Resource Management Act and the Replacement Acts, and welcoming the prospect of reduction in consent requirements and some of that regulatory approaches from the last RMA that was there, and a whole simplification and less cost onto consent holders, let alone a whole heap of permitted activities, etc. So, and I know that would ultimately result in less cost onto the consent holders. However, I just want to urge you some caution. If some of those things that are in the RMA replacement acts get through select committee, they will have that effect of reduced cost on consent holders, but they could also increase our costs to get that new regime in place, including the spatial plan. and that's going to be not cheap. We've seen how much the TTPP has cost us. You're envisaging a spatial plan process like the TTPP to overlay the one plan that we've done. We're significantly advantaged there because we've got the TTPP in place barring appeals, and we're ahead of the game compared to any other region in New Zealand, barring a unitary. But you know, I'm just wanting you to understand that some of that stuff is going to come at a cost, even though ultimately it'll be less cost down the track on consent holders. But as yet, not sure, so haven't got those budget estimates. Thanks.
Through Darryl, is it likely that we will have to engage additional resource to deal with implementing these changes in our system?
Yes.
Is a TTPP, won't that do for the spatial plan, or
No.
so it's got to be redone again?
No, the TTPP, Mr. Chairman, doesn't have to be redone. The TTPP sets the platform for the spatial plan, but the spatial plan is a different output than the TTPP.
Yeah, it'll form a resource base, but we're anticipating the teaching will be a good resource to feed into this new planning program.
So will it be much more involved in it?
It's unclear at the moment. National directions will come out, because tranche of national directions going to come out into the year.
Yeah, I don't share Darryl's confidence in the TPP. This plan has restricted quite a bit of our private land. If anyone doubts me, have a look on go on the maps and just have a look at the mapping. Now it's taken about half of our private land. We've only got about 7% left now. All this mapping with SASMs and outstanding natural landscapes and wetlands and SNAs. If you look at all that, it severely restricted our rights on our private land. And there's also the huge cost of it. It's a very restrictive document. So I don't think that it's any advance for the West Coast. I'm sorry, Darryl, I have to disagree with you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to respond to that, and I'm going to agree with Councillor Birchfield that a lot of those overlays are a significant imposition into private land. They are.
Yes.
I 100% agree with you. The point that I want to make is it wasn't our council staff that dreamt those up and said we're going to do this as something they dreamt up. That came directly from the government's act that we had to do that, and we were purely performing to the statutory responsibility that we've got from the existing RMA. Thanks.
I disagree. It was up to the planning committee, it was up to the committee to make that call, and they should have excluded those areas. They should have shown a bit of courage and stood up for the people of the West Coast. We've been sold out. Thank you.
Jackie?
Sure, thanks, Mr. Chairman. This is video. Getting back to the replacement of the RMA with the new bills coming through and the implications, are you actually saying that we're going to end up subsidising consent holders?
No.
No.
What I'm saying is to give effect to what could be the new RMA needs a whole lot of new planning work to set up that new regime, and we'd have to pay for that, and that would come out of general rate.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that we're subsidising the consents.
It's not a direct subsidisation.
It could be considered indirect.
Yeah.
That's what training our people. No, Mr. Chairman, for instance, if we're going to embark on, what this new RMA is envisaging, the new RMA, we're going to have to change our databases. We have to change our forms. We have to train our staff in a new way. We have to invest in the new spatial plan, which is a whole new piece of work. All of that is at a cost. We're going to have to probably change our plans when they lift the embargo. All of that comes at a cost, and councillors are well aware what the Schedule 1 process through plan making costs. Once you get into submissions and hearings and all that sorts of things, on expert evidence and all that sort of thing. all of that is unleashed with the new RMA. But the hope is, and look, I've heard the ministers saying that the resource management system in New Zealand over the next few years is going to be very challenged and in a bit of turmoil and change as all of this goes through and gets washed on through and changed and everything. But the hope is that we'll arrive in a better place at the end of that than where it's been in the last few years. That's their hope.
Hope.
Andy?
Yeah, well, I think we're just making things too complicated. Like, are we gonna review what Ellen's talking about under the new spatial plan? Is that gonna review all that again? And where are we gonna go?
I can comment on the theory. The theory is to standardise and simplify. But we'll have to see what direction we get on that.
Yeah, we gotta hope it happens. And we gotta hope it doesn't take bloody years to do it too, you know? We could be still bugging around with this 20 years later.
I'd just like to make a short commentary. The reason we're losing our young people, they can't afford to get a resource consent. We've barred them really for going into any activity here because of the consenting process. It's like my grandson. He's easier to get a trade and go to Australia. They're not going to hang around here putting up with this nonsense, waiting years to get a consent and paying $20,000 or $30,000. They haven't got the money anyway, so they're off. So unless we can make the system better to keep them here, we're doomed. Their young people are going to be gone.
I don't think that's all this problem either. That's New Zealand.
New Zealand, you are correct. It is a New Zealand problem.
Yeah, like it's made it very hard for like people want to start up little businesses. It's pretty hard.
Yeah.
And that's our future, isn't it?
Yeah.
We move on to the next one.
We're in November.
Oh, sorry, Colin?
No, it's probably a question you can't answer, Matt, but you know, what's the sort of time frame that, is there any sort of indication of time frame in terms of when we will be at a point where we have to put the resource in to effect the change within our organisation?
At this stage, in terms of the spatial planning process, that is meant to be completed in the first 15 months,
right
after the bills come in. So it's really tight, and it's almost asking the impossible. There's a great assumption that the information is there for regions. ETP processes have been through a lot of that, and we do have our plans in place, so that's there. There's a bit of resource for what we have as business as usual, and then there'll just be some adjustments to the way of working, and in terms of spatial plan, all that's GIS based stuff, so we need to skill and probably recruit in that space. But yeah, they are very tight time frame, and we're still really waiting for that national direction to really scope things up and see where
So any indication of the likely additional full-time units you're going to need in terms of implementing?
At this stage, we would be anticipating another position for our IT GIS systems.
So thanks, Mr. Chairman. Again, just want to be really clear here. So on a number of bills that are making their way through select committee and other things in Parliament at the moment, we have not made a budgetary provision in the annual plan for next year. Okay, we have not. In the event that some of these land, certainly pre-election, and if they land anywhere near what they look like and going through select committee, but that could change significantly. So there's a lot of confidence in the time frame and what the eventual wording is going to be. But let's just say that they do land, particularly for the spatial plan, that actually has to start in January next year, which is halfway through the annual plan process. So we're going to come straight back to you post if it goes through the House with what those additional resourcing implications are, what that means from a budget and resourcing perspective.
We are well placed to inside council as well. Would the actually participate in this connect.
Thank you.
So wrong, playing that, like, then you get much statements.
Well, it's certainly this is, it's pretty much a replacement of the regional policy statement. If you want to think of it as that sort of process.
I can
So-
see the situation where at the moment practitioners are having to operate with the TTPP and the local plan, district plan to get consent through subdivisions, for example. You could end up with having 3 of these things to actually treat your way through. Don't get really, really tricky.
Spatial plan, there's another couple of plans to come out.
Yeah. Right, now we move on to 9.5, oil spill regional on-scene commander arrangement. So you again, Matt, it's recommended that the committee resolve to receive this report.
Aye.
A second, please.
Aye.
Thank you, Peter. You moving it? Second, Jackie. Jim, go for the discussion. Oh, all in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Against? Carried. Discussion, Matt?
So West Coast Regional Council has temporarily filled the regional on-scene commander role for marine oil spills, which was quite timely. The role was required under the Marine Transport Act and is responsible for leading and coordinating the regional response to oil spill incidents. The issue arose because council previously had only one qualified on-scene commander, which was Chris Barnes. After his resignation, the position became vacant. To make sure council meets its statutory obligations, Tim Ashton was appointed as temporary Ross on 23rd February 2026 through till 31 July 2026. While one of our staff members is trained and qualified to take on the role permanently. Tim is well qualified in the role. He's contracted by Maritime New Zealand as a regional oil spill assessor. As part of the National Oil Spill Response Team and previously served as a warranted ROC for Environment Canterbury. Council is building resilience by training another staff members back up and strengthening the wider regional response team. Just on the gear that we have, Maritime New Zealand supplies oil spill response equipment. That equipment is stored in Westport and Greymouth and includes booms, skimmers, pumps and storage tanks. So in summary, this report just confirms that we've taken the necessary steps to ensure the region remains covered for marine oil spills as legally compliant and has a plan to restore permanent house capability.
Has our team member, the training of an internal team member started?
Yes.
We have one down, Marco down.
So conveniently, Tim was meant to be starting the next day on the Thursday, coming over for training, and we organised a grounding. No, so we got testing plan.
Mr. Chairman. Can you tell me, do you have the ones we hear about? They might be an urban myth, but cotton wool machines that absorb the oil from the top of the surface of the water?
I couldn't tell you exact details, couldn't find out. I have had some experience myself in those things.
Okay.
So they are lambs, they're sheep's wool ropes. Yeah, they work quite well.
Okay,
But whether or not they are a part of the kit, I'm not sure.
okay.
Andy?
It's a good job for the water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
We make it worth something.
maybe not more.
No more discussion? Thank you. And we'll now move into public excluded. Motion. Exclude the public, this next bit of business. The public being excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting on agenda item number 1, which is
No.
number 11. Yes. And no, we're moving in a second that we've moved the public excluded, please. Jackie, Colin, thank you.
I'd just like to comment, and I have before,
Opposed?
Well,
That's trading,
that's now.
Should be normally a walk or something.
Okay, Tim, can I just call everybody for attention? Well, I'd welcome everybody again and everybody online to this, the 7th of April 2026 council meeting. Kicking off with the agenda, there is one apology from Councillor McIntyre. Do we have any other apologies?
Francois is also.
Also, Francois Turmahai is also an apology. Any further apologies? Okay, do I have a mover for those apologies? Thanks, Chris. Seconder, thanks, Alan. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. There are no declarations of interest, no public forum, petitions or deputations, no late items. So we move on to confirmation of minutes. This is the council minutes for the 3rd of March, 2026 meeting. Do I have a mover for confirming the minutes of the council meeting held on the 3rd of March 2026 are a true and correct record? Alan moved. Seconder, Andy, all in favour? Against? Motion carried. Thank you. There's no public action list items for this meeting. Here's report. I'd just like to say that the council has had a busy and productive past month, both at the governance and operational level, advancing the interests of our region, both at a regional and central government level. This has included working jointly with the mayors, chairs and iwi forum to advocate for our region during the recent visit of the New Zealand First leaders to the West Coast, here in Greymouth, at Blackpool and also in Westport. And our council looks forward to advocating for our region and whenever the opportunity should arise in the future. I'd also like to raise the very, very successful hydrology conference, which was run by our council. And one of our own during that conference, Pete Mason, received an award for services to hydrology. And I understand those services have been extensive and long lasting. So congratulations from all of us here on this council to Pete for that award. All right. The recommendation is to receive the chair's report. Do I have a mover for that report? Thanks, Ash. Seconder, thanks, Chris. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Okay, reports. 9.1. Chris, hand over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, so this report regarding the West Coast Triennial Agreement. So under the Local Government Act, it's the requirement that local authorities sign an agreement within 3 months of the start of the new term. And we have met that requirement on the 27th of February. The West Coast Regional Council Chair, along with Buller, Westland and Grey District Council mayors and Development West Coast and iwi have signed off on that, and that's attachment to the paper. So this is just the formal process in terms of that agreement. The essence of it is the agreement is a commitment or a framework to coordinate and collaboration within the region. So a statement of intent of parties to work together. And this paper is apparently a formality to bed it down within the regional council. So the recommendations proposed to receive seeking council endorsement of the agreement.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thanks, Alan. Seconder. Thanks, Andy. All in favour? Against? Motion carried. Thanks, Chris. Now we move into public excluded. Right, so I put a motion that it's recommended that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of the meeting, namely agenda item 11. Have a mover for that. Thanks, Andy. Seconder. Thanks, Chris. All in favour? Against? Motion carried.
How much on it?
Yes. Okay, there being no further business, I declare the meeting is closed at 12:55 PM. Thank you, everybody.
That was cool. And then the launch.
Well, that's welcome everybody to the Extraordinary Corporate Services Committee meeting for the 7th of April 2026, and welcome to those joining online or watching the recording later on. Item number 2, apologies, noting Whakahaere Medwick, Tumahoe and Councillor McIntyre both tabled apologies, looking for a mover and seconder for those. Alan, Colin, all in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Declarations of interest, are there any on today's agenda? I'll take the silence as a no. Moving past that, no public forums, petitions or deputations, will move through that. No late agenda items, will move through that. And just noting no minutes due to this being an extraordinary meeting of this committee, and no minutes to be received. Into the report 6.1, the second quarter financial reports.
You'll see this report has a bit of a new look, a different look from previous reports, and I think that's going to add value to you as a reader. The other thing that what we're trying to do in the reporting here is that the way, if you go to the accounting standards, you've got subsidies received for capital, it's shown as part of the profit and loss. Yet the capital expense is capitalized or sits in work in progress. So when you have a look at financial statements, that way, because our subsidies are under budget, it looks like our operating position is worse, was impacted by that. So what we have done here, if we have a look at the report summary, and I think this explains it, is that we've got a favourable variance against our budgeted variance, and that's looking at the operating expenses, excluding the capital subsidy. If we bring the capital subsidy into that, which is shown as revenue, that does then put us into an unfavorable position because of the timing of our capital projects. And that's really a timing difference. Looking into the next 6 months, we'll ask the questions, well, how's it going to pan out? And so I expect that our capital projects won't be at a point where we can either claim for that funding or we will receive funding. So that may stay with us through to 30th of June 2026. But from a true operating, if you go into the report itself, you will see what we've done here is broken the revenue and expenses into the operating areas for the functional managers. And we put a bit of narration to the right of that. And what that does do, if you look at the council business unit as a start, it gives us our revenue earned by that business unit, and then it gives us our expenditure. And as can be seen, we're pretty much on budget for the first 6 months of the year. And to the right, we've got the reasons for that. And it's been offset. And this over here really goes to VCS. So that's the VCS business unit. If we look at our catchment, there we're looking at a favourable variance of $218,000, and that relates to our salaries in part, and also the level recoveries of the district rating districts and expenditure recovered. And this comes back to the conversation we were having earlier: is are we recovering and are we identifying the work that is billable, and that will change the picture on that. And just on that, just one quick thing is that where we recover labour, where we recover internal labour against a project, which is an internal mechanism, that's actually up against our salary expense. So that's not external revenue coming in, it's an internal mechanism through intercompany charging or interdepartmental charging. Consent compliance is most probably the biggest one here from a variance. And that's very much to do with the timing of our legal costs. So we can get, if something goes to court, there might be a time for that to come off, and then we can recover some of the legal costs. Let's probably pause there and then invite Tracy to give her view on that.
Okay, so just further clarify that these legal fees are fully cost recoverable of anything that have had to do with the resource consent. So that's if there's a bit more of a technical resource consent that they need to get external legal opinions on, etc. And so we've tightened up our mechanisms to make sure that all of that stuff has been fully cost recoverable.
Our information, I'll just go through our governance. They're looking at, we under budget on that. And that's the election costs that need to be brought in. So that's an accrual and a timing difference on that. So the cost is to come, it's not captured.
Yeah, so just at the moment, just to clarify as well, the district councils actually won us election costs, and they did that for us. And so they've just been taking them a wee bit of time to re-invoice us. So it actually came through, I think, about February that their additional costs have came in.
And information systems, you'll see there we tracking again better than budget. And I think through the conversations we've had with our IT manager with Blair, showing some of the programs and resourcing of them. This is the CE, there's slightly up, and community management slightly down, not a material amount, but our rating districts, as you can see there, there's one there, where our revenue has exceeded our budget as well. The line to be obviously is coming back to my earlier, the capital subsidies in a separate table. So you can see there we haven't received those capital subsidies or funding for capital projects in for the first 6 months. And it's due to the timing in the main of the capital projects meeting milestones or points that we can actually invoice members. So I'd really like to get your sense. Do you find this type of report useful? Is it hitting the mark? And on that as well, we've actually automated this here through BR Apps, which is a software tool. So going forward, the time taken to prepare this will be reduced. but more importantly, it should be less, the risk of less errors, because it's extracting the information straight from our accounting system. So it's those type of initiatives that we're really pushing at getting it through one source of truth, and something that the whole organization can see at a point in time. It's pretty much real time as well. So cool.
Yeah, look, I just like financial statements, not my strength. But I found this very, very helpful and very easy to understand. So yeah, well done.
Basically been intimately involved in that with Blair and our team. So if we then move on to the next, now this is what you, from an accountant's perspective. Sorry.
I'm just interested in the commissioners with the TTPP. What did we estimate they would be? 511,000.
That's right, the TTP.
Apologies, can I get back to you on that, councillor Cole? It's just, yeah, I'm just going.
Look, I can answer that question. I know the answer. So like the way back when the GTPP committee was first set up, the chair of the independent chair of that committee was asked by one of the TTPP members, "What do you think this is going to cost?" And he said, "Well, we haven't done any formal cost estimates, but look, you know, maybe it's around 5 million." And that got enshrined as the budget, right? It was not informed by any cost estimates at all by staff, and that kind of got entered into folklore, right, as the budget. Now, at the end of the day, I want to repeat what I said this morning. The budget and the expenditure of the TTPP is governed by the Joint Committee, of which we have 2 representatives on that Joint Committee, and they're responsible for the fiscal oversight and of that project. And the Regional Council had agreed to just rate for it as a target rate, but effectively it's a general rate because it's rating to everyone.
Just have a query, and it's related to the triennial agreement with the chairs, mayors and areas. Since inception, you know, the administration and secretarial support is done by this council. Now, the joint committee, I would have thought the cost was shared gently between the members. What's the cost been for that secretarial support and the work that we do that the other parties do not contribute to, when I think they should?
So Mr. Chairman, sorry, is this for the
Well, I don't
Joint Committee?
No, well, I don't know what it would come under. Will it come under PPP, or is it governance, or is it corporate services? What is that paid for? That work we do on that?
For mayors, chairs, anyway.
Yeah. For mayors, chairs and iwi. We don't track a separate budget for the secretarial costs of that. Basically, that's just taken up in the existing jobs, particularly of Russ Seller, the EA, and also Joe Field. But we don't track that separately as a cost.
You know, I asked the question because I noticed in corporate services there's some figures there that are fairly small figures, you know, 40,000, 40, a couple of 40s. And I just wonder if, you know, corporate services for this over the years would be getting up there. It should be a register somewhere. We're the only ones paying for it. I think that's not equitable when the poor membership should be paying equal shares because they're getting the free deal on behalf of our ratepayer. I think, you know, that there should be some revision on that.
It wasn't the philosophy, though, that it still goes back to the same ratepayers. We just collected half, really, but we show up as the baddies because we're the ones in.
And we've got some confusion around the table between TTPP and the mayors, chairs and iwi, but point well raised, Colin, you to, and
I'm just asking, Val, you know, just seeing the work that Joe and Russell do, to give Councillor Ewan an idea, so what percentage of their overall job description would be a provision of service to the mayor, chair, and iwi? Less than 1%.
Can we take it on notice? And we'll come back to
no, that's right. Yeah. Very small, very small. very small. And I think that's your point, isn't it?
Yeah, my point is, in answer, councillor, look, I see, what, both Priscilla and, Joe do, and look, it wouldn't be more than a few hours. Yeah.
You know, I'll just make the point, you know, the small equals think of big, accounting for costs, no matter where they fall.
Sorry, apologies, through the chair, just to councillor Ewan, we had brought up around the corporate services.
Well, that's brought up from that.
Yeah, so one of the other things that you have a lot with is the software licensing and stuff that we have to pay for on an individual basis because we have the rates database. You've got all those things behind the scenes that actually cost to run the council itself. And so
It's not just a small cost. There is additional cost to what we do on behalf of those other organisations.
Getting back to what Darryl said about the estimate for the DPP, late Bruce Smith was more on the mark. He said it was going to cost near 10 million. So he's coming up pretty good estimate. And with your layout here, Colin, thanks very much. You've simplified it. You're getting back to Robert Mallinson's format. Yeah. You can, even someone like me can pick it up and read it pretty quick. One comment I will make is, as a businessman, I see your rates revenues 14.5 roughly, and your wages are 12.5. That's getting pretty close. It's a pretty tight margin. You know. Thank you.
And just on that there, we'll undertake some benchmarking as probably as part of long-term planning of what it looks like as looking at other regional councils, but then also taking our uniqueness into account on size. So,
thank you.
Well, you know, I'd like something followed up on what I've brought up. You know, I'm not happy that it's just left like that. It should be a figure. It should be a relatively easy one to exercise out of the whole figure, whether it's 5%, 1%, 2%, whatever it may be. Because as we pointed out, it's our framework, it's our computers, it's our programs.
Just through the chair, could you provide some context to that? Yes, I will get a figure and we'll get a percentage. But what we've got to be cautious is there's an element of good relationships between the councils. So if we levy the council, we're not quite sure that it'll come back to us because they provide us revenue as well that may be bold, may not be bold. So just how we manage that as a strategic.
Thanks, Colin. Mr. Chairman, I wonder, please, just for the action, because you wanted this recorded as an action, could you please articulate exactly what the action?
Well, I'd like to know the cost of us doing all the secretarial work for the joint mayors and chairs.
And is that year to date so far?
There must be a ballpark figure, surely we don't.
Yeah, no, so is that a yes? Is that a yes to, you want to know what the cost for the year to date so far is being the secretariat?
Well, and if that can be extrapolated out, how much it's cost us since inception when the mayors and chairs first come in. If it's 10,000 a year over 10 years, it's quite substantial.
Okay, Chris, have you? Yeah, got that. Thank you.
On anything else in your report? All right. Just on the next here, you'll see this goes to the next part of the report. It's the more traditional style of accounting. But what we've also done there is kept the capital subsidies separate. Just to reconcile that. And over the honestly quite happy to take questions on the loss side of it. And then we'll just go to the balance sheet. Which is a different patch, different version of the same information, essentially.
Any questions from the table at this stage, or should we progress to the balance sheet?
Right, coming to the balance sheet, the big item here, and I'm looking under the current assets. So those are assets that are realizable over the next 12 months. So that's sort of a broad definition between our current assets and our long-term assets. We've got our receivables, and then we've got a separate paper that will be going through public excluded. On here, you'll see our cash is above our forecast, and that is timing, that's due to a timing difference. and also the timing of our capital projects have been tied into our subsidies. That's sort of telling the story and finally letting it across the P&L cash flow in our balance sheet. Then coming back down to borrowings, that's on non-current liabilities. That's note 3. You'll see that we've got higher borrowings than our budget. And that's sort of related to what we've borne down over the last, mainly this, last financial year, early this financial year. So that's how the movement of cash goes through the working capital and loans. And that's really what I wanted to call out here. Going into future reports, what we want to do is provide a snapshot of our capital projects as at a point in time, as well as our loans, our internal loans. The external loans are covered by the Treasury report. And we can bring that in and then we'll again tell a bit of the story and triangulate the information data. I'm happy to take any further questions across the report.
Questions from the table?
Look, I'm sorry, if there's any further questions, otherwise I'll just make it, if you like. No? All right, so Mr. Chairman, I'll just really summarise it right up in a quick statement, especially for media here. So at the 6-month mark, with our operating expenditure, we're slightly under budget, but you might as well say we're on budget. It's a margin very slim. We're basically on budget, which is a very pleasing result at the 6-month mark. Very pleasing. With the capital budgeting and that result at 6-month mark, that is a timing matter. Okay, just a timing matter, because it's very, very difficult to get your cash flow right over sort of 3 construction seasons on when you're going to be expending and drawing down from government and performing against the budget. So I'm very happy with this budget performance at the 6-month mark, both in terms of, particularly in terms of OPEX, but also timing with the CAPEX is that issue here. Can I also then say you've got to marry this up to the report that I think you received at the last corporate committee from Karen Jury, which says that we've got an 85% pass mark on the work that we're meant to do. So not only we're on budget and delivering the work that we contracted to do through the annual plan with our community. So you marry both of those things up, and from a performance point of view, financially, and in terms of the work we're getting through, we're very, very good and on track at the 6-month mark. Thanks.
All right, mate.
And look, just following on from our CEO's comments, that's very, very reassuring to us as councillors. And I just want to express very big gratitude to our operational team who've ensured, number one, that we're sticking as close to our budget as possible, and number two, we're achieving most of our tasks we're set to an 85% standard. So that's a very, very, very good result, both for us as councillors and also for our ratepayers.
Just for a bit of clarity for me, because I can't quite follow page 8, consents and compliance. The last sentence, compliance cost of 153,000 could be recovered in the future through the court process. What does that mean?
So I'll respond to that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. So we've got a number of prosecutions that are making their way either through the court or have just received judgment. As usual, when we have a successful prosecution, and in my time we haven't had an unsuccessful prosecution, the judge, the Environment Court judge, puts their mind towards costs. And we make our claims in terms of the expenses that we've incurred, including legal expenses for compliance matters, to get it through the courts. And the judge will then decide how much of that will be awarded back to this council as costs, from the guilty party. What I would say, though, is that Just like in any police matter, the police don't make money out of policing. We don't do this to make money. And it's seldom that you get 100% of your costs awarded. But that doesn't mean to say that just because we can't have that means that we should not ever do any prosecutorial work. Prosecutions are equally a deterrent for others, and to show that we're doing our statutory duty around compliance. So yeah, that will be depending on the judge in terms of the costs awarded.
So just one final question then on that answer. So theoretically, a successful judgment on our behalf could be a fiscal cost because we wouldn't recover what the outlay's been for the prosecution. So we'd be in deficit.
It is very seldom that you get awarded the full cost of your prosecutorial costs.
So we would be in deficit.
Yes.
You do.
Anything else for anyone else?
Just to help Councillor Ewan, from my background, both as a litigating lawyer and a normal lawyer, you never recover, even in civil proceedings, you never recover a full cost.
What dispute name?
And so, but that's not a disincentive for people to take enforcement action or to comply with their obligations.
I think what Councillor Ewan is alluding to is that we've got a deficit in our compliance, and we're making it up out of our investment fund. Is that right, Peter?
It could be inferred that way.
We've got a deficit in our books. And one of the reasons is we've got, we're not recovering the full cost of the prosecutions. So we're making some of that deficit up out of the investment fund. Thank you.
Is that a correct statement?
So if we have a look at our annual plan, that's a conversation we've been having. If it's in the year, we haven't bought anything out of the investment plan to actually subsidize the operating result. But in the annual plan, that is a conversation we have been having.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a conversation we've yet to have, but that's on the cards. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, I can confirm that we have not drawn down investment fund money to pay for deficits in this year's prosecutions. We have not. What would happen is that we return a under budget position at the end of the year, but we're over budget in our prosecutorial budget, then that'll be washed out, and there'll be no further requirement to bridge that.
Okay. If there's nothing else from anyone else, as the chair of the Corporate Services Committee, just wanted to extend my thanks to Tracy Colin and the rest of the Corporate Services team. It's nice to hear Alan and Colin both acknowledge the fact that it's easier for them to digest this information, which ultimately means it's a show public out there to better see our accounts and understand things from their point of view, which is great in the process of transparency. So thanks for that, and nice to hear it's now going to be real time and takes a couple of safe steps out of the way as well. So thank you very much for that, team. And obviously acknowledging a $460,000 positive variance against budget in the 6-month mark. But an organisation of any size, you're on $500,000 better than expected is to be celebrated still too. Looking for a mover and seconder on the recommendation to receive the report. Peter, all in favour?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 7, movement into the public excluded section of the meeting. Looking for a mover and seconder on the motion that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting, namely agenda item 8. Alan, Chris, thank you. All in favour? Motion carries. Thank you to those here in the public and online for joining, and we will come back after the public excluded section. Good. Cool. We're just coming back into public section, excluded section. There is no further business of this committee. I'll declare the meeting closed at 1:40 p.m. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, councillors. You may note in your diaries that, there's any method that councillors want to stay on and raise it with me or anyone of the staff